Well, hello everyone. Thanks for jumping in after lunch. I appreciate everyone being here. Happy to be joined by Chris and Jerry. Should be a good conversation. So yeah, as David said, I think there's a tendency when we talk about transformation to think of it solely through the lens of technology. But in reality, to have proper organizational transformation, you have to align people, process, data, and technology. So Chris and Jerry are going to walk us through that today. Chris, when you think about transformation within the ATP tour, what does that mean for you beyond the technology? And then, I guess, coupling on top of that, how does architecture and organizational structure play into the agility as well?
Yeah, good question. So, as you pointed out, transformation can't be perceived as just technology. It doesn't work on its own. So as we start to look across the various attributes or dimensions of transformation, which is people, process, data, and technology, actually one of the most difficult things is the people element. If you get the people element right, then you can really accelerate. And we're really lucky at the ATP that everybody's already bought into transformation. Everybody wants it. It's just we need it. We need to move fast. So agility around organizational structure and architecture, some of the needs are very similar. So when we look at architecture, because the pace of change in our sport, we've got to be agile, we've got to be able to change things on the fly near enough, we've got to be able to move and to continue to support our members, which are our players in our tournaments, as well as our fans. So from an architecture perspective, we very much promote a loosely coupled approach to everything we do. Everything has to be building blocks so that we can change as and when we need to. I mean, it's not rocket science, it's not new, but it's very easy to get tied into monolithic, tightly coupled environments where you just can't go anywhere. So the impact of change is huge. So we very much have a set of principles that allows us to do that. Also gives us access to numerous capabilities that we can plug in. We're very much on a journey of implementing that. And then from an organizational perspective, when I joined the organization, the teams were quite siloed into specific products, which means there wasn't a huge amount of portability of people, knowledge, and everything else. So we've restructured the team. It was in January, and we now have a team that works in basically practices. So we have core engineering, UX and design, product, data, infrastructure, and architecture. And this is where we create best practice and standards. And then we build multifunctional teams that allows us to deliver at pace. And the agility of those teams and the construct of those teams allows us to deliver to business objectives pretty quickly. Paired with the ability to run things like scaled agile, PI planning, those sorts of things, allows us to really look ahead and understand where our resources need to be. So we're in a position now where portability of people is really high. The level is really high. To the point that we've actually had to put some guardrails in place because it's a bit too agile, actually. Everyone's able to work everywhere across any product, but by doing that, we're sharing knowledge across all areas and reducing single points of failure and giving people opportunity of growth as well. So that, in terms of investing in our people, creating agility in their own ability to work across different things, it is really good. And that coupled with architecture, we're starting to see things fly out the door now, so that's great.
I don't think I've heard of too many organizations complaining about too much agility, so that's quite a good problem to have. Jerry, switching a little bit more into the cultural aspect, how are you guys aligning culture with business objectives so that it's not just a purely innovative-led initiative?
Yeah, well, I think you hit on a good point regarding innovation. Innovation is really a culture around an organization, and it's something that you have to think of in every aspect. When I first arrived, we did a bit of analysis in terms of the organization from the sports side to the performance, to the business side, to see where the innovation was coming from. And it over-indexed in probably our brand area, which is not uncommon for a brand like PSG, but actually across the organization there was very little terms of thinking differently, particularly on the sports side. So you start the process of actually getting the organization just to think slightly differently about the way they work. And it's great to hear how Chris describes how the ATP are working, and I think I work very closely with our CTO, has a very, very similar approach to that. For me and the people in my team, it's more about how do we work with people to understand a bit more what their business problems are and how we sort of articulate their challenges. Sport is very fast-paced and intense, and I think all of us would agree there's a lot of football. Like, we played 65 matches last year and were in the Champions League and the Club World Cup, and the run of organisations is incredible. So how do you get people actually to put their head up and start to think, actually, how do I do this thing a little bit better? How do I change the way I work? And how do I think completely differently about it? And that's a large proportion of what I do. A few things Chris mentioned, which I agree in, and one of the things that we need to do more of, and we are, is we do more. So there is a advocation of doing more and trying more, which is a real cultural shift from it's okay to try things and they not always work. Got to be super agile. Don't sweat too much about how things are going to be. It's about doing and learning and then taking and going from that. And those are like some of the core aspects. I don't think it's innovation for innovation's sake. I think there's an association with innovation and the product or the technology that comes out the back of it. But actually, it's what you do all between that sort of changes that.
Right.
And that's a big aspect about what we're doing here. We're seeing a great growth in terms of spread of innovation across the organisation, keenness to collaborate. I know Chris touched on it in terms of transversal working groups. And all those things need to be constantly nurtured in order to actually be an innovative organisation.
Yeah, for sure. And you touched on a great point on not building tech for tech's sake, and I think it's kind of an essential theme really this year, but also at this conference. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are not falling into that pattern at all. Speaking of culture and people, I think the most important people when we talk about sports are the fans. And so we recently did a study that found that 81% of fans seek higher personalization, and if they had higher personalization in their fan engagement, that they would be more likely to engage with the brand as well as spend more with the brand. But only 22% actually feel like they're getting that personalization. So it's a pretty massive gap. So I guess coming back a little bit, one thing that we have to keep in mind when trying to hyper-personalize is ensuring that we maintain fan trust. I think we can all agree on that, as well as maintaining compliance. And then when you start incorporating things like AI and data strategies, Jerry, what are you guys doing to ensure that fan trust and compliance is not compromised?
Yeah, there's a few simple things which I know it sounds really, really basic, but it's actually just getting a common terminology about how you talk about your audience. So there's a lot of people, particularly when you work with a sport and you're living it and breathing it within a city, that associate the audience with the same audience that comes into your stadium, but it's not. It's much broader than that. And a couple of the tactics we use is like, how do we sort of make this really macro so it's really easy for the C-levels to appreciate the fans, supporters, and casuals, which is a really easy way for everyone to understand those three segments. And then how do you, on a more granular basis, when it comes to how you build products, to how you create content, to how you segment campaigns, be a lot more segmented on a persona level. So it goes back to that education piece, right? You know, whenever you're talking about what you want to build, who you're trying to build it for, you still need to get that idea that the casual fan that loves our brand and loves PSG for the fact that the Eiffel Tower's in it and it's associated with Jordan, but couldn't tell you who the starting 11 was last night against Barcelona, they have a very different need. So there's that aspect of it. I think what AI helps us do really is from a segmentation perspective when it comes to how we sort of market to our audience. It's brilliant. You know, there's so many rules that you can put in place now that sort of help manage fatigue and the way in which audiences engage with you. And yes, AI is great. But there still is the cultural and the practices of how do you sort of get people thinking broadly about who am I building this for, what's it for, and I still find that as a common challenge today.
For sure. Now that we've opened the AI Pandora's box, which was inevitable at this conference, Chris, you guys have started to adopt AI in a couple different areas within the ATP. I believe in consumer data platform, also in your athlete performance as well. Could you speak a little bit more on those particular areas and what your strategy is behind there?
Sure. I mean, strategy is very much evolving. I'm sure most people in this room, that you know that deploying AI, which is an overused term now, is a journey. It's not a quick fix. It's not plug and pray, basically. It's a journey, so you need to think about it properly. We're thinking about it in, let's say, 3 different pillars. One is around tooling. Second is corporate intelligence. Third is engagement and performance. So we think about tooling. For a lot of people in our organization, tooling is too easily available. So sometimes we're choosing different tools. We don't know what the overall cost of that tool is, and it's not just subscription license. It's the cost of my data. So making sure that we are equipping our teams with the right tooling, having the right guardrails in place, understanding what the responsible use of those tools are for when we start looking at data. So building the foundation is really important. Having the right tooling that's going to interrogate that data is key. Then we move on to corporate intelligence, which is more of a connected data approach to bringing all of our data repositories together so that we can be more of a data-driven organization. So we have a lot of data. Data that's structured, semi-structured, unstructured, sitting all across the organization. So we're in the process of looking at how we bring that together. You may want to call it like the ATP GPT, for instance. Okay, and there may be one or many of those things depending on the use cases we're trying to solve. Actually, working out what you're trying to solve is half the problem. So working through that, bringing in new skills. We've got to start thinking about the validity of our data, making sure it's up to date, it's fresh. We've got pipelines in place, so we can use the data in near real time. So that's really the tooling. And then when we look at engagement and performance, engagement we classify with our fans, and we're very much on the journey of trying to build a deeper connection with our fans. So we're building out things like central identity, customer data platforms, those sorts of things, so we can start collecting data about our fans in the right way, in the responsible way, because there is a big value exchange there between the ATP and its fan base. So we can then start to address the personalization, the hyper-personalization question that you had. And I look at personalization across a scale, which is, first of all, zero personalization, where you're giving everybody the same information. That's sort of where we are today. And then we move into things like preference-based personalization. So there might be players or tournaments I follow. I can then start to give you a more personalized experience. Then we talked about segmentation that you mentioned. So we can give a much more personalized view to fans. And the key thing is to be relevant and relatable, not just to bombard and spam. It's just not useful. Then on the other end of the scale, you've got hyper-personalization. Now, for me at the minute, do we need to go that far? I don't think we do at the minute. One, you've got to understand the true cost of personalization from an infrastructure consumption perspective. And actually, because our personalization bar is reasonably low at the minute, we're hoping to deliver a huge amount of value very quickly. So that's under engagement. And then performance, we launched a platform. It's a little while ago now, but we relaunched it as version 2.0, which is Tennis IQ. And actually, the next session with Darren Cahill, I'd encourage you to hang around for that. That's Darren helped us launch Tennis IQ 2.0 in the US Open this year. It's fascinating. As a user of the platform, to look at player insights, so we're ingesting scoring data, ball and player tracking data, to not just build sort of graphical analysis tools, but we've recently introduced also video segmentation as well. So give me all of my serves to the juice court that are out wide, where I won the point, and we can do all those sorts of things as well. So players being able to look at their performance, really dig into their data, literally within half an hour, 45 minutes after a match, start preparing themselves for their next match so they can be looking at other players' data as well. It's fascinating. I mean, the only data we won't put in there is obviously medical data and biometric data, but that at some point will be available to players for their own consumption and their coaching staff. So that's sort of the full breadth, and as part of your question, which was how do they connect together? So we're building foundations, we're building tooling, we're building intelligence that helps us take all of that data and then use it as just business intelligence so we can drive our business forward, understand our fans, serve our players, and that becomes this sort of connected ecosystem of tooling. And I think I didn't say the word AI too many times. I think.
You hit your quota, so you're good. No, I love that you guys are combining the different data points. It's kind of the central theme of ensuring that you're not building or transforming in silos, and that all these different data points need to communicate with each other. And personally, I do love Tennis IQ. It's a wonderful piece of technology. It's amazing what it's been able to do for athletes. We actually had a very similar project with Stats Perform to help build their AI match-driven performance analytics tool. But so kind of getting back to our central theme of the discussion, which is, how do you transform in this rapidly evolving ecosystem of sports and entertainment, where it is constantly moving, constantly evolving, and you don't technically, especially you at ATP, do not have a quote-unquote off-season to catch your breath and line up those projects, transformational projects. How are you balancing the need for transformation as well as maintaining business as usual?
So I remember when we spoke before, we talked about trying to maintain an 80-20 split.
That's
with
right.
80% transformation or strategic initiatives and 20% business as usual. And that is difficult. As you say, we don't really have an off-season. A lot of our staff will get back from the Next Gen finals, and maybe the 23rd of December, then the 26th, 27th, they're off to Adelaide for the start of the season, for instance. So it's really tough for making room for strategy is hard. But we do, with the structure that we have, and we have the ability to expand or contract reasonably seamlessly now, we do leverage our partners pretty heavily. So partners don't just bring capacity, they bring capability as well. So there are times where there may be skill sets or capabilities we don't have in our own team. So we need to bring them in. But as part of those relationships we've built with our partners and suppliers, we're not only just bursting capacity and they leave, we also manage knowledge transfer, upskilling, those sorts of things. So as we sort of reduce back to our core set of our core team, we're maintaining good capability as well. So building those partnerships and bringing in different capabilities and capability and capacity at different times is a really key thing for us, and that really helps us move the needle. We've got so many competing priorities, but all are just very, very necessary. So we'll use our partners to help us maintain that 80-20.
Yep, that's beautiful, and it's a mark of a good partner that they're not leaving you high and dry when the project's done. You do a proper knowledge transfer, make sure that you're ready and capable to keep moving forward. Jerry, I think when we talked, you guys were looking at doing close to, was it 30 projects a year?
Yeah, there's probably more than that.
Oy.
So we have a couple of approaches which we take. So from an innovation perspective, we have a centralized budget, because you can budget for certain things, but you don't know what you're going to know until the season hits. So there's almost like an accelerated budget which we have within the company. If there's a new project that we have distilled or identified, how quickly can we go to market? We also spend a lot of time in terms of, I've got a lot of good relationships on tech side from my time there, of knowing what tech organizations want, and they want you to lean in. Too many organizations within sport are very hesitant and like, okay, when are they going to pay us a sponsorship fee to do this, or what is going to be, and the time's gone. So being able to know, okay, there's an opportunity here, how quickly can I lean into an organization, how can we be seen as leaders in this field, not only allows us to do more with that tech company, but also allows their competitors to go, you're doing stuff in this area, you're active. And you'd be massively surprised how many tech sponsorships that happen within the sports industry who don't even activate their tech spec, and we're going beyond that. With regards to the projects you mentioned in terms of 30, we're onboarding around about 4 to 12 projects per region in the category of startups that have a product that is ready to go to market and they're ready to launch. So we're not looking at really early projects. We're looking at those that are ready to go to market or launch within about a year's time. And we build proof of concepts with them. We have a very, very strong relationship, which is reciprocal in terms of our brand, plus the audience we have in exchange for their technology, learning, and the case study we build. And we try. We have ticketing systems, but we try ticketing technology. We don't sit there and go, we can't do anything because we have a ticketing system. We have broadcast platforms and video players. We try and we test and learn. We're very bullish about blockchain, and we do a lot of work within this area and expose ourselves to various different products on the chain because the agility is there. So it's just about rethinking, right? I mean, I've worked in sport a long time. I've spent time on the tech side, and sometimes we just spend too much time procrastinating or waiting for, I can't explore that because this current solution I've had in a year, and I'm not going to think about that for another 2 years.
I think a lot of sports organizations fall into the if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of category, especially in the States, NFL, sorry. So I guess, how are you breaking that mold, and what sort of pushes you to keep moving the envelope or moving the needle?
So the culture thing's important.
Yep.
So whenever we do anything, we almost act like a tech company. We will celebrate it and produce a case study internally in the video that goes out. So every person within our organization, where that idea may have come from, if it is they had this business problem, we talked about it, we went out there and explored this opportunity, we celebrate it. So there's a big celebration of everyone across the organization who is conceptually come up with an idea and develop that culture of innovation. It's important to do that because that inspires others. We have platforms that allow people to go up and suggest ideas and build teams. So we have an open entrepreneurship platform where people can go, I've got an idea, can someone come and help me with this? And they'll all collaborate and come up with their ideas, and we qualify them on a regular basis. That culture is so important because unless people are like really receptive to doing new things or seeing what's happening, when you come in and say, I've got this new technology that we want to test, or a new solution we want to test, do you mind doing it? Traditionally, people would be like, oh, I'm scared about this.
Yep.
But if they realize it's testing and learning, and we're going to get that, and that's celebrated, truly celebrated, whether it's on the sports side when we're looking at technology that understands the genome of athletes, or whether it's on the stadium innovation where we're understanding the behavior of fans when they're sitting in their seat or in the concourse. That constant churn. But it's about speed, it's about agility, and being very, we're just going to try and learn. Celebrating. There's no failures. There's always learnings in those. And then, just trying to broaden it out across the organization so it's not segmented in one area. If you do that right, you can create a culture of innovation.
Yep. I think, a lot of organizations are so afraid of failing, but in reality, failing forward is ultimately beneficial, not just for your knowledge base, but for your organization as well. Final few minutes. Also, if you have questions, feel free to submit them. Chris, maybe leave us with some best practices for those that are looking to launch their next organizational transformation.
Well, you didn't put that one in the script, did you? Okay, so I'd say one of the things for me is deliver outcomes, not functionality. Think about what your stretch targets are. Think about things like OKRs are really useful. So objectives and key results. Really start pushing the boundaries. Don't get comfortable. I love the fact you've got more of like a labs technology, a culture. That's a bit of a North Star for us. We're nowhere near there yet. And we'd love to create space for our teams to experiment. And we used to have, when I was at the BBC, we used to have like Freedom Fridays as such. So teams would get together, exactly what you're saying. There's a problem, I need to solve it. Who's in? And you create space for teams to do that. It's really difficult to justify that time, but it's essential. So creating that culture to experiment. You talked about failing fast is really important. Give it a go. Failing gives you really valuable lessons, things that we've learned. If you haven't learned anything, you haven't been bold enough. So go in there, fail fast, learn what you can, move on, take them into the next project. So I think be bold, don't be comfortable, and just learn from your failures as such, right? It's not, if you don't, then you build these monolithic things and then you just basically die really slowly. Then the impact of change after that is huge, and it will take you a very long time to get out of it.
Couldn't have said it better. Jerry, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, everything that Chris said, I agree with. I think the only other thing is that, when you are thinking about that outcome, which Chris said, and I completely agree with, don't be too concerned if the journey takes you in a different direction and you get a different outcome.
Right. That's a great point. It's a balancing act, isn't it? I mean, you want to make sure that everything you're doing is taking you towards that North Star as an organization, but you don't want to be so blinded that you can't see any of the opportunities outside, yet also not be distracted by every shiny penny on the ground. So it's a nice sort of teeter-totter there. Anyways, I think that's about it for us. We'll hang around if anybody has any additional questions after, but Chris, Jerry, really appreciate it, guys. Really good stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.